going to unleash a golden age of prosperity.
We will make America great again.
And when we fight,
we lose.
We win.
Oh.
CBS News, America Decides, Election 2024.
Yes, it does.
November 5th is finally here. Welcome to our America Decides Election Night special. I'm Lindsay Reiser in New York.
And I'm Vladimir Dutsev.
And I'm Clinton Jaws. The only thing I care about, please subscribe. Let's watch some tears. 12 hours crammed. Yeah, I did this. 12 hours crammed into 20 minutes.
I mean, I'm a queer person in this country, and I'm very afraid of losing my rights, and fingers crossed that doesn't happen this week.
You have nothing to worry about. Nobody's going to get you pregnant.
That officials had identified the source, that it was from Russia. The FBI also put... And as we'll keep reminding you all night, we may not know the winner before most Americans go to bed or even when they wake up in the morning. That is all our new
Weeks
normal
from now.
as more Americans vote
New
early
normal.
and vote by mail.
This is the new normal.
35% of the people polled say the state of democracy is the most important issue. That's kind of surprising because I would have thought the economy would be number one, but the economy is followed there by a very close second. 31% say the economy. 14% say abortion
Get rid of those
is
babies.
the most important issue facing them.
One of those critical voting blocks is Latino voters.
What she's done over the last 107 days has been nothing short of remarkable to people. And so, yes, I am satisfied that the vice president has communicated herself and articulated a vision that is about turning the page and
Everybody
writing the next chapter. And we'll know in a few hours if that was able to resonate with the American people.
She's got this.
She did tell her story about growing up in a middle-class household. People almost made fun of it. She talked about it so much.
People did on SNL.
People did almost. They did make fun of it.
But let me clear the air. As a strategist, you want people to make fun of it because that's the thing you have to drive home. Because I'm sure we're going to talk about, has she distinguished herself in what she's going to do and what's different? She only had 100 days to distinguish herself when Donald Trump's been running for president now for like 47 years. If he was more likable and could stay on message, this thing would have been over yesterday.
It's not likable. I think it was over yesterday.
46% of those polled say Trump's views are too extreme compared to 37% of Kamala Harris.
It's going to be a tight race.
That it will be a razor-thin race for president in this battleground purple state.
Orders that some of these threats appear to be from Russia.
I knew it.
And the blue states going to Kamala Harris. And that results in a starting point of 226 electoral votes for Kamala Harris expected and 219 for Donald Trump. That's where we will begin. And what that does is that
if you go by what Maurice showed, which is that if Vice President Harris is able to carry the state of Pennsylvania, and she's able to either flip North Carolina or Georgia to blue,
you're onto something.
Then, and she keeps that blue wall in the Midwest, that path to 270 is relatively easy.
Piece of cake.
You're probably not going to know Pennsylvania if it's close for a couple of days just because of how, for everybody at home, everybody counts their votes a little bit
Next year, maybe.
Some of them
Vice President Harris made one final campaign stop today to Democratic headquarters in D.C. to do some last-minute phone banking.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi. And stage at polling places across the country.
I voted for Kamala Harris.
More
I think
war.
She's the right choice to continue
Absolutely.
our democracy.
She is more for the people.
Except for babies.
The other guy's insane.
Go back where you came from, lady.
He makes me fearful.
It has been just...
Well, Nora, they're very excited about the enthusiasm that they're seeing on college campuses today. They point to Lehigh University, for example, in battleground Pennsylvania, where the lines to vote were 4 and 5 hours
All
long.
for Harris.
And young people tend to vote Democratic.
Oh, good point.
She looks like me. I'm a black woman.
You're her stunt double.
So that's kind of important to me.
I know for a fact that Kamala is going for reproductive rights, and I have a lot of women in my life that are very important to me, so I just wanted to support them and make sure I got that vote out there.
And the campaign claims they are seeing a high concentration of Puerto Rican registered voters in Philly after a comedian made a vile joke at a Trump rally last month.
I have immense anxiety.
Well, get out of the wind, woman.
I actually lost
You're in hurricane force winds.
Harris has banked a lead with mail-in ballots up by roughly 500,000 votes.
Uh-oh.
Weijia Jiang in.
In the Motor City, where 80% of the population here is made up of African Americans, Harris is projected to win this area.
And earlier today, U.S. Capitol Police arrested a man that they say arrived at the visitor center smelling like fuel.
He probably works at a gas station.
Donald Trump wins. Harris wins the solidly blue state. That's the number of electoral votes. It's been incredibly close for weeks, and we may not know the winner tonight.
By 70% that they would be scared if Donald Trump won.
Pennsylvania, you were talking about the early vote there. We did see the Democrats voted in large numbers in the early vote that may have banked hundreds of thousands of early votes, which would be a good sign for Kamala Harris.
Obviously. Where they say in suburban areas, former President Trump is doing a lot worse than he did 4 years ago. And they are pointing to that as a sign of strength for the vice president in the suburbs, everywhere. On college campuses, they say they're very pleased with the Puerto Rican turnout in Pennsylvania.
Where he falsely claimed yet again fraud in 2020, and he talked again with lies about criminal migrants, he said, pouring through our border. That is just factually untrue.
The illegal aliens? They're legal aliens now.
He has suggested that migrants have bad genes, that they are poisoning the blood of our country. What this is, though, Nora, and we've been talking about this and we'll continue to talk about this tonight.
What?
There's a very clear strategy with Donald Trump, having covered him for so long. He is targeting and really trying to speak to young men who feel aggrieved in this country.
That won't work.
Who feel like they have not been getting their fair share, tapping into a frustration that they see with immigration, those numbers that we saw in December of people pouring across the border, telling them that those are the people that are making your neighborhoods unsafe and they are taking your jobs, and really tapping into this us versus them and expanding who the us is in this country. Is it Latinos? Is it also African Americans? What I'll be watching for tonight, though, is whether that actually works, because traditionally a closing argument in a campaign for a president has been hope and optimism, and that is what is thought to drive voters to the poll. And today from Donald Trump, what we heard there in Florida was that immigrants are again taking your jobs and ruining this country.
He's doomed.
The Harris campaign has said on the record that they believe those late deciders were breaking by double digits for them.
Very loud and proud Trump supporters who said unequivocally, if he doesn't win, we know this is rigged and that we will be out in the streets.
Trump wins.
Obviously.
The former president won the state to get Indiana. CBS News projects Donald Trump electoral votes.
Kamala Harris is leading over Donald Trump 58-37. So there's late-breaking voters. It is happening in North Carolina. But
and the woman on the ballot for the Democrats has put reproductive health care, women's reproducctive health care, at the center of her campaign in a really unique way, Nora. I don't think we have ever had such a national conversation about health care in the way we have. And it's an emotional one. It's a galvanizing issue. It's an uncomfortable one.
Less people. We need less people.
We're going to be able to perhaps measure that in some of these key states, and we'll bring...
Look, we have great young people on college campuses in North Carolina and Nevada
and vote for Harris.
Georgia.
Everywhere.
Pennsylvania, you see very long lines, and they're staying in line to vote, but that enthusiasm is real, and so we're excited about it. I think that people came out to voice their support for the vice president, but more importantly, for her agenda and how it affects them.
What agenda?
Well, I'll tell you, we have the better candidate. We have the better person. Vice President Harris has gone everywhere. We were in Pennsylvania all day yesterday. We ended in Philadelphia.
There was a perception, either rightly or wrongly, that Kamala Harris had a problem with black male voters. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I don't think it was true.
The Harris campaign says tonight that they are feeling confident because
Trump will win the Sunshine State. Trump will win this race. Kamala Harris will win. Harris will win. Trump will win. Trump will win in the state of Tennessee.
My boy.
200.
Our estimate is about 50-50 when all the vote comes in.
50-50.
What the Harris campaign is seeing is real encouragement there. That in fact she's running ahead of President Biden in some of those ex-urban counties, around Atlanta, higher totals than what the president got 4 years ago.
that says that they are overperforming the internal turnout expectations here in Philly, and it can. But what is really different, Nora, is the way that they've gotten people to the polls.
How?
The Harris campaign ground game has been like a well-oiled machine, knocking on over 5 million doors. They have a ground game that the Trump campaign doesn't even touch. But for the Trump team, they own that, and they say, yeah, we have about 2 24 field offices, and we are reaching people, but they've really outsourced the door knocking and the traditional ground game to super PACs, including Elon Musk. And the Harris campaign says that's a real risk.
Is what traditionally Democrats have won. Pennsylvania taking 19 there, Michigan taking 15 there, and Wisconsin taking 10 electoral votes.
The so-called blue wall strategy.
Exactly, the blue wall, all the bricks there in order. You see it gives her 270 right there. She becomes the next president of the United States. Pennsylvania just closed. If that were to go the other way, you know, that takes it right out of his hands, and now he has to go elsewhere to find votes, and that would be, say, Arizona and Nevada. Does that bring him closer?
You weirdo.
Closer, but not yet.
251.
It didn't bring it closer. 251
into
stayed.
one of the blue walls and take one of those bricks out of that.
It's supposed to turn this red, 15. You dipstick. You got one job to do.
He'd get it right there. And call that 266. He'd still need one more state. He'd still need to get to Wisconsin to get over the top. So you can see how critical Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, they all are.
Donald Trump will win in that state. Trump will win there as well. In South Carolina, CBS News projects Trump will win. Kamala Harris will win the District of Columbia.
Let's start with Latino men, for example.
Latino.
Trump is winning them 54-45 right now.
Oh, you're starting to sink in.
She's only winning 61% of Latinas. Those are low numbers. Those are not comfortable numbers. The other one, if you look at white women, Trump is winning what traditionally happens, 52%.
Uneducated.
Of them. Both of those would be real warning signs for the Harris team.
There was a belief that women, Republican women in particular, would go into the booth and vote their values, vote their conscience.
And they may still.
And they kept saying, you don't have to tell anybody, it's your own private vote.
Keep it secret.
And what we're seeing early on, that does not appear to be the case.
They don't sound incredibly ecstatic.
Trump will pick up North Dakota to win in South Dakota and in Wyoming at the great state of Texas.
We will not have in-person turnout numbers tonight in total, so we will not be expecting to hear a final count from Pennsylvania.
The Harris campaign remains incredibly confident, in part because what transpired just up the street a few days ago seems to be paying off for the Harris campaign, not the Trump campaign. The Madison Square Garden event where that comedian said all those nasty things about Puerto Rican people and others across the country, it is registered. They noticed this morning that turnout in the 3 most Puerto Rican dominant wards around Philadelphia had exceeded the 2020 numbers already, or 79% of the total had already shown up by lunchtime today. That's a good sign. You saw her last week campaigning across Philadelphia as if she was running for mayor. They put her in front of a black audience. She went to a deli. She went to a Puerto Rican restaurant. All of it designed to drag people out of their homes and vote. This is why tonight Democrats are feeling, as Nancy said a while ago, fine, because ultimately they believe this is what's going to get them the votes they need.
One woman was on the fence, but after that comment from the comedian, she said, nope, I'm now leaving Trump.
The Department of Justice says that Russia is getting involved in our elections to bolster Donald Trump. They're pumping up.
That plus 65 voters were breaking towards Kamala Harris, and that was a trend, and that you may see that in other states. And you're suggesting now that that exit poll data shows that in Michigan, in Wisconsin, that she is overperforming Joe Biden among the plus 65 group, which is a reliable vote.
And this, again, is why they've been so confident that ultimately they'd prevail in those big 3 states in the West, is they knew, with elderly voters especially, they were going to do all right.
Thanks for that.
Show Harris is leading when it comes to voters 65 and older.
CBS News projects Rhode Island for Harris, New York for Harris.
Oh, looks like it's working.
He's at the Harris campaign headquarters at Howard
Somebody
University
hit him in the ear.
in Washington,
What's wrong with your ear?
DC. And Ed, I know it's still loud there as many people are celebrating and waiting to potentially hear from the vice president. But what are you hearing?
Nothing. He's got his ears closed.
Hi, Nora. It is a celebratory mood here in Washington, D.C.
The party believes if they win all 3 of them, and the numbers show Kamala Harris would become the next president of the United States.
That it was emanating from Russia. Well, we've got reporting that former President Donald Trump is claiming that there is massive cheating happening in Philadelphia.
Well, then there is.
And CBS News projects the former president will also win in Montana and in Delaware. President Joe Biden's home state, Illinois. CBS News projects Harris will win there.
Trump is winning Latino men. That's part of what's changing this, right?
Yeah.
How?
Yes.
He said very clearly if Trump on the national numbers gets 40% of the Latino vote Harris is screwed.
Yeah.
That is a very concerning number for them. And
All the Kamala Harris rallies we've been to in the past few weeks, it's totally silent here.
Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio. Wins there at Kamala Harris will pick up Colorado's 10. Kamala Harris has 91.
There seems to be some sort of link to Russia.
Former president has won the state of Iowa.
And she is running slightly behind Joe Biden. Trump is currently in the lead there. We have it a light shade of red, leaning Trump.
Really interesting. All right.
We are at 201 for Donald Trump, 91 for Kamala Harris.
That's not how we were supposed to start.
At the beginning of the night, this is where we expected and will expect the votes to go. And what we believe to be likely based on past experience and past voting.
Projects Donald Trump will win the state of Kansas. Ohio, CBS News projects the former president will win there.
That's a good one.
CBS News projects that she will win. Trump will win, and over 5 decades, Idaho has supported.
I just spoke to a source close to Speaker Pelosi. She's, quote, still optimistic.
Could you imagine him being your dad? I went into your bedroom, and all I found were condoms. Why does one boy need so much condoms? Maybe a true story.
Want to flip it?
It's Arizona.
Give her that one. She wins.
That shows you exactly.
This is why we're going to be here a few days.
I was just looking at my path to victory. There's some other very narrow ones, some pretty obscure options here, but we are left with a total of 5.
Scott, I'm sorry. Can I just, does it look like Republicans could control both chambers?
Oh, that's certainly in play.
Yeah, and it seems that if you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're feeling very confident and encouraged, and if you're a Kamala Harris supporter, you're feeling a little worried at this particular time, although we keep saying there's still a lot of votes to be counted.
Well, I think the vote is still being counted in Pennsylvania.
Russia's.
We need to keep emphasizing that.
Yes, certainly don't know what's happening in Arizona or Nevada just yet, and
or
Michigan, Wisconsin.
I think is troubling, though, Nora, is that she seems to be underperforming in areas that they thought she would do well. That's why I think people are so concerned at this particular point.
Well, there's still a path, but it's thorny.
We can project that Trump will win North Carolina.
The vulgarity that we've heard talking about Arnold Palmer, we all remember that comment and the locker room and doing all the Joe Rogan podcasts and the Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off at MSG and all of this. I think
gesticulating with the microphone.
The gesticulation at the microphone. That so much of America went, I'm sorry, what is happening? How is that possibly going to appeal to people? And what we're seeing tonight is that it actually is not a turnoff to many people, to many of the male supporters, particularly who sat in MSG and cheered it on. And that was particularly a very bro-y feel, a very dark rally that we all talked about in the week of it.
He won bros in North Carolina by 21 points.
She said that this is a razor-thin race, but that they still believe that the blue wall, this trio of states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, are all within reach.
But when I asked, who would you trust to babysit your children? Nobody. Only one person chose Donald Trump. And I just think when you put it in that context, I'd like to know what that says about us as a country. What does this mean?
You should have asked, who would you rather babysit your kids?
We're going to be digesting this as a planet when we wake up tomorrow morning to figure out what's next. A third of the world has had a female leader. This country has not. And tonight, this is also a test of whether a woman could be a commander-in-chief of this country elected.
Do you think he'll still say, Bob, the election was rigged?
Why would he do that?
If he wins?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it, too.
Well, no kidding. What a stupid question.
I doubt it, too.
But the night's not over?
And what is in particular in the numbers that's alarming?
They're not seeing the kind of support they need to from working people in the Midwest. Labor union members.
So if she loses Wisconsin.
10 electoral votes.
Right. She might need the 11 electoral votes that is in Arizona.
Oh, she would desperately need the 11 electoral votes.
Right, that's the only path to victory. Project that Donald Trump is the projected winner in the state of Georgia. That's significant.
Yeah. But it didn't seem to matter how often you heard the economy's doing well, the job report is doing well. None of that seemed to matter. People would still say, I'm still paying too much for milk.
Look at this. Since Biden took office, rents in the battleground states are up 20%. That's not because Joe Biden was elected. cost of your rent is affected by a number of different factors, but people blame the boss. I mean, the grocery inflation, 22%. We are on the back end of a pandemic
where you shut everything down,
completely upended
and what the political
supply chains and global economy.
We won't hear from the vice president tonight.
Did you hear that? Damn.
How extremely reminiscent this feels to 2016,
and also saying too, Cecilia, everybody we still have hope. There's still a path. It's a big sense of a big case of deja vu.
He didn't say we still have a path. He said with their votes still being counted.
Yeah, he said the votes are still being.
Have a path.
But he said the votes are still being counted, and that leads you to believe that there is that there still is hope. He didn't say, look, there's no chance. He said the votes are still being counted. So, there's a big case of deja vu, I think, for many people tonight.
What a shot this is, though, to see these supporters at her alma mater at Howard University. And
she's wearing a mask.
There
Look at this.
In that neighborhood.
That's why you
off
lost.
That campus right now, wondering when they will know the results of this election.
Welcome back to CBS News Election Night. You're seeing video of Trump supporters reacting to a projection that the former president will win the state of Georgia. She's going to need 68% of the outstanding vote.
She's going to need 68% of the outstanding vote, according to our estimates. Gap.
So there's still a chance.
Problematic for the Harris campaign.
Well, this is when we should go to Maurice Dubois at the Path to Victory and see if there's a path to victory for Kamala Harris that does not include Pennsylvania.
Does not include.
If she is able to get Pennsylvania,
why are you clicking on it?
She's going to need Michigan.
You don't include it.
She's going to need the blue wall, Wisconsin as well.
This guy.
If Wisconsin isn't available, as we say, it leans red tonight.
Why'd you
have
click
to
it
go
red?
to Arizona to get to 270, and that would do it.
What are you
doing? No, that would be 260. What am I doing here? 260, 272. Which one? I gave it to red. That's what I did. Okay.
How do you have a job?
That would be blue. So there we go.
What about the other one?
Math isn't my thing, but
you got
the
that
map
right.
tells the story, doesn't it? So yeah, the paths are narrowing for Harris. They're getting wider for Donald Trump. Here we are at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's clear to
What
me.
does that say to you, John? What does this mean?
Well,
Elon Musk just today said to his 203 million followers on Twitter, go to the polls and vote for Donald Trump today. Did that clearly make a difference for him? What happens? It seems that he would be in power with no guardrails, so to speak.
Steep cliff.
And nor even the way we do politics in this country is going to come into question. Because what were we spending so much time focused on the last few days? But, ground game and knocking on doors and making phone calls may not matter anymore. That's right. It's going to require a completely fundamental rethought about how you campaign for office on a national scale and on a statewide scale.
Look, I think there are some who still see a narrow path for the vice president, and I think it's important.
There are other news organizations that are now awarding this to the former president, and he is set to take the stage here in the coming minutes and will address the world and likely declare victory because it appears to be heading in that direction.
And let's turn now to Gayle King. Gayle?
Gayle?
We're going to bring in CBS political contributor Joel Payne now. Joel?
Hi, Gayle.
Hi, Gayle. So I just want to say when Jim Clyburn was here earlier this evening, he said that there was still a path, but the path was thorny. I think now we can even see that looks like the thorns are bending to the side.
No, you just ran out of path.
When you were here earlier today or yesterday, and now my days are all running together, you said the conversation about black men was being exaggerated, that you didn't think that was the case.
Oh, what do you say now?
Are you still, as you sit here today, an hour ago you had hope. Do you still have hope yourself as you sit here now?
Well, Gayle, I got to have hope.
He's got to have hope, guys.
CBS News projects that Donald Trump will be the winner of the state of Pennsylvania. That is a state that Biden carried 4 years ago, but
right
Trump won in 2016, a major projection, and that essentially closes the pathway for Kamala Harris and the presidency. Robert Costa.
So much disappointment among my top Democratic sources tonight.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
And last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
Mr. Vile.
In West Palm Beach. It's almost inexplicable.
Inexplicable. Guys, I leave you tonight with Jimmy Kimmel. Remember, he's an adult. He's a grown-up. Thanks for watching.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.